All right. So good morning, everyone. My name is Nick Detman. Guess a long story short, I'm a social media and digital marketing specialist. Specialties include social media strategy and planning, as well as website functionality and design to better assist people in understanding how to digitally market their business. As we all know, 2020 was a different type of year, and it's really kind of brought to the forefront the importance of social media and digital marketing, and making sure too you have a high functioning website to go along with it, since more and more shopping and information search is done online than it ever has before. So some of you may see some of this information that I've done in previous webinars, but it does not hurt to kind of get a little refresher, and then there will be some new information regarding really kind of the core of what we're going to talk about today, and that's Google Analytics and its upgraded program, which is called Google Analytics 4 or GA4. So we'll go over what's new with it, how it compares to the previous versions of Google Analytics and its value, and then some things that will help you understand maybe how things are functioning on your website and how that can also even connect to your social media. So we'll jump in. I know there's a lot of information to go
Nick?
over. Yeah,
Excuse me, Nick.
yeah,
I'm sorry. Should we just have everybody introduce themselves and maybe say what they're looking to get out of this?
sure. That's a
Or,
bad idea.
what business you're with, because they're all members of the chamber.
Sure. Yeah, good idea. So yeah, I guess we'll start with Leah. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Leah. I work at St. John's Lutheran School and Church here in West Bend, and I am trying to maximize our marketing power when it comes to online. And I know just a very little bit about Google Analytics, so that's why I'm here.
Okay. Sean, you're next.
Yeah, hello, I'm Sean Hanrahan. I'm with Airshot Live. I do drone aerial photography, cinematography, and inspections. And I'm breaking into using social media and some of the avenues. I currently use GoDaddy, and I have some analytics through my website, but I haven't had a whole lot of traffic coming to my website, and I'm hoping to get more web traffic to the website and a little bit more business intelligence about what to do with that traffic.
Excellent. Is that boy, I wish there was a name we can change. So it's Carrie, right? That has the next one.
Carrie Stern and Cindy Fromater from Cedar Community. Basically just what Leah said, just trying to improve outreach and everything on social media and understanding all the Google Analytics.
Sure, and kind of the nice thing too is if you can get an understanding of Google Analytics, Facebook has, and all social media platforms do have analytics tools as well. We do have, I've given presentations about that, but that's always something I can offer as far as questions and answers later on. And I don't know, maybe Lisa, I don't know if it's something we want to rehash in a couple months, but we'll worry about that at that time. But if there are questions about social media marketing during this, feel free to ask. Like I said, we do have a lot of information to go over, but by all means, stop me if you have a question. I do have some spots built in to where we can do other questions and answer kind of things. But if there's something that I say or that you see that you want to ask questions about, by all means, don't hesitate to stop me and ask right there. So, all right. So let me, now I'm just going to remember how to share my screen here. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Is everybody, all right. Does everybody see kind of a web presentation thing here?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to be working off of two screens, so I'm going to be looking up every once in a while just because of the window layouts. So I just got to get all the way to the top here.
Yes.
So, all right. So here we go. Google Analytics, an upgrade. What we'll learn today is Google Analytics has updated its analytic tracking program. So what is the update? How can it help you? And what tools does it have? Oops. Back up here. All right. So just a quick update on, well, not say update. This is just a little bit more about my background. Originally from Milwaukee. Got a degree in journalism, mass communications from UWM. I've worked at newspapers in Idaho, Indiana, and Wisconsin, including the Daily News in West Bend, covering about 20 years. Won more than 40 writing levels. Or writing awards at several levels. Gosh, 2012, that was 9 years ago. Geez. 9 years ago, I had my debut novel published, reached #2 in the authorhouse.com bestseller list. I still highly suggest it as quality reading. There's the plug for the book. Like I said, after 20 years in journalism, I transitioned in 2019 to social media and digital marketing starting at the Milwaukee Center for Independence. It's basically a nonprofit organization that works with people with disabilities or disadvantages. And then I hold certifications in social media marketing, email marketing, content marketing, and of course, Google Analytics. So, like I said before, some of you have seen some of my other webinars, so some of this may look familiar to you, but like I said, it does not hurt to rehash some of that. So what is Google Analytics? It is a web analytics service offered by Google that tracks and reports website traffic. It is a free offering. All you need is a Google or Gmail account, which is also free. So why is it important? Well, understanding the activity on your website really helps you understand how users interact with your website. Obviously, and we'll go over this too, is why people go to a website. And it's mostly to find information and verification. For verification purposes, so much of what people do nowadays relies around social media. So a lot of people these days will search for a company or see a company on social media. Say, for example, if you do what's called boosting posts, which is essentially advertising your company or your business, people may see it and then they click on the business, look through your page, and then if they're a little more interested or want more verification, then they'll go to the website. The way to kind of picture it is social media can be the front door to your business. The website is what's inside the house. So essentially social media tries to draw you to the front door and then get you through it. And then once inside the front door, that's what your website has, and that's what how you kind of function your website. So things that you can learn from your Google Analytics are how people are finding your website. What are they looking for on your website? What pages do they visit on your website? What are your website demographics? Such as where do they live? What interests do they have? So you're looking at psychographics too. How long users are staying on your website. And then there's also new terminology and data, and we'll go over these in a little bit. So a lot of information that can be found through Google Analytics. This is just some of the bullet points, and we'll try and break those down for you to really kind of simplify this, because like I said, the data can be overwhelming and and if you don't really know what you're looking for and how to evaluate it, it's not going to do you real good. So that's why I said we'll try and break that down to really just the key spots that will help you understand what people are doing with your website and how they're finding it and how you can use that to your advantage. So you think about a website, and we just kind of mentioned this. A website provides brand credibility. People will, if they're looking through a business and they find it through social media, they'll go to a website to verify that you're actually a business. Businesses with a website are easily accessible, meaning that's a way to connect to potential consumers. It's the easiest way to do so. A website builds a relationship. You can showcase your products and services the best way possible and the way you want to. A website makes your brand more visible, and you can benefit from Google's searches. And this is stuff that we'll go over throughout the course of the presentation. People still judge your credibility as a business by the way your website looks. If your website looks like it's just assembled for pieces and put together, without really organization, people will look at that and say, oh, this is somebody that just does not care about their business because they don't care about their website. There is some value in having a good website based just on how it looks. And a website is an integral part of online marketing. Without a website, you are not going to do real well in the digital marketing landscape. You just need to have it because, and we'll get to that here in a sec, you can strategically track or target your customers through a website. And then going back to the previous bullet point, all of your competitors already have a website. So another reason to have that. So thinking about a website, how do users interact with websites? And you and we all read from left to right. So the top left corner of any website gets the attention, the attention first. People read on F patterns, and that's on the next slide here. And people don't read, they scan. Users will scroll, but after halfway down the page, holding views drops significantly. It's not all that uncommon for people to only see the top 25% of a website, especially if they're looking through it through a mobile device. Even more so with a mobile device. Maybe on a desktop, if they're looking for it on a desktop, they may get down to about halfway down the page. The left side of the page gets more attention than the right if we're just thinking desktop-wise. First impressions form in less than a second. If you don't capture attention in the first second, user more often clicks away from the page. So you're just dealing with a very short attention span, and people want answers now, right away. So you got to figure out a way how to get their attention as soon as they get their website. And this is kind of what I was talking about with an F pattern. And these are what are called heat maps. So where you can see is the darker red means that's where most of the views are seen. And as the less views or clicks that are on a page, the lighter it gets to the point where it's blue. And if you could see the one on the left, where as you get further down that page, it's very blue, which means it does not have a lot of views or hits or clicks on that particular portion of the website. And again, another look at a different graph on how users scan a website. As I mentioned, the top left usually gets the most attention because, like I said, that's how we all read, is we read from top, left to right, all the way down to the bottom. And that's kind of what you see in this graph. And again, here's another heat map. And this shows where people are views on a website. So the one on the left shows when it's red like that, that means everybody sees it. Your website sees that portion. And as you scroll further down, you start to see the colors start to change until you get to the blue, where that's where your last impressions and views, take place. With the one on the right, this one is kind of a click graph. And again, that kind of shows with that F pattern graphic we just saw a couple of slides ago. The attention in the upper right has the most clicks. And right there, the reason for that is where a call to action button is, such as maybe learn more, contact us, subscribe to our newsletter, request a free quote, stuff like that, or request a brochure. And then this is something I will go on, we'll talk about too more in depth later on, but this is what's called a Google search engine results page. I'm sure all of us know exactly what this page looks like. Essentially what it is Google. If you put in a search query in Google, a list will show up of based on search, your search results will pop up here based on what you typed in and based on how Google has indexed other websites related to the topic or question that you have posed to Google. And again, we will go over this in more detail later on. Some statistics about website: 57% of internet users say they won't recommend a business with a poorly designed website, especially on mobile. 85% of adults say a company's website when viewed on mobile device should be as good or better than the desktop website. 38% of people will stop engaging with a website if content or layout are unattractive. That's like I mentioned before about If a website does not look like it's professionally done, or at least has some, it doesn't look like somebody knew what they were doing, you will lose people just based on your appearance. 88% of online consumers are less likely to return to a site after a bad experience, whether that is a poorly designed website, they didn't find what they're looking for, site speed was too slow, or they just didn't find what they were looking for. And 75% consumers admit to making judgments on a company's credibility based on the company's website design. So a little couple of bullet points that I've mentioned already. Setting up the customer experience on a website. What is the journey and experience you want users and potential customers to take while on your website? Create a buyer persona or personas, essentially. Who are your customers and what are they looking for? And visualize, where do you want them to go? You're kind of the one leading the way. You're the one opening the front door and showing them. Kind of think of it as almost like you're a real estate agent. Okay, your living room is maybe your home page, and think of different rooms that you want users to go to. And that's kind of what I just mentioned there. So, and how can Google help with that? Well, search Google Analytics on, you guessed it, Google, and you can sign into to your Gmail account or create one. I've included a video link on YouTube that shows a great way. It's a great tutorial on how to set up a Google Analytics on your website, as there is some code implementation you may need, or you have an IT department or know someone with an IT background, they can help with that as well. It's not too difficult, but in case you do have some troubles getting it set up, like I said, there's a good video, or just ask someone with IT experience. They'll know what you're talking about. All right, once you have Google Analytics tracking set up, the amount of data available will be overwhelming at first. Like I mentioned, there's just so much that is out there available to you. And it's really important to understand what that data is telling you, because one of the golden rules in marketing is you got to make data-driven decisions. And if you don't have that data, which is say, okay, your business attracts a lot of people who have a specific interest, or they live in a certain area, you're not going to be able to make sound marketing decisions, sound advertising decisions. And this can apply, and you can use this information to your social media strategy as well, to understand what type of people are attracted to your business or organization. All right, so here we go. So what is new? So it's been launched in moderation since 2019. Google Analytics 4, or GA4, is an upgrade to the previous Google Analytics program. Google Universal Analytics is what it was called, or GA3. Now, why the change? The number one goal, according to Google, about why the upgrade was done was because it felt data analysts weren't getting the best information that was available to them. And I will go over that here in a little bit. So Google wants to provide more value, which helps with better decision-making and digital marketing strategies. And like I said before, marketing decisions are based, or should be made based on data, or that you're getting presented. So Google's goal with GA4, or Google Analytics 4, I'll refer to it GA4 more often than not. So with the new program, Google's number one goal was engagement, and engagement on a website. So what is engagement on a website? An engagement is essentially any kind of interaction with a website. And that's a page view, a scroll down, up or down your site, a click on something on your site, a file download, such as a PDF for a newsletter, or newsletter signups. Basically any interaction that somebody would have with your website, or that is what Google is calling as an engagement, and that's what they feel is more important than anything to understand how people are looking and understanding what your website has. So essentially, the switch from GA3 to GA4 revolves around moving from page hits and views to events or engagements. So what else is new? If you remember, these were terms to know in Universal Analytics, or GA3. Bounce rate, it was the percentage of users to visit a page on your site, and that's the only page they view. Exit rate was the percentage of users who visited more than one page and ended their session on that last page. So say if somebody landed on your homepage, did a couple, went through like your About Us section or looked at your store. So if they clicked off of store, that would tell you that is an exit rate out of store. Users is the number of users to your to visit your website. Sessions is the number of sessions or visits to your website, which includes one user doing so more than once. Direct is user directly typed website into the browser. Organic was somebody found your website and came to your website through a search engine such as Google, Yahoo, Bing, DuckDuckGo, basically any search engine tool. And then referral was a source to your websites, maybe such as a news station like Fox 6 posting a link to your website on their website. So if your business was featured in a story, they could put a link to your website in the story. That would, and then if someone were to click on that, that would count as a referral link to your website. So what went away from GA3 to GA4? Again, instead of the focus on hits and page views, data such as the behavioral flow chart is no more. Google had a chart where you could see where people were coming to your website or a certain page on your website, and you can see what sites or what page within your site they're going to next. That has been eliminated. Also gone is the bounce rate, and that was in place by an engagement rate. The numbers are really kind of similar, but not exactly the same. Again, the shift is from acquisition, audience, and behavior and conversions to acquisition, engagement, monetization, and retention. So if you are anybody familiar with GA3, this is what that page looked like. And you saw users, you saw sessions, there's bounce rate right in the middle, and then session duration. Here's what the new GA4 dashboard homepage looks like. So underneath the home, sorry if it's a little small, but you'll see users, new users, now average engagement time. That means what is the average time someone is engaging with your website based on those events that I mentioned before. And excuse me. So much, much different, but still very high quality information. One of the best things that I thought was new was called real-time reporting. It has greatly enhanced. In GA3, real-time reporting only showed what was going on at that particular moment. In GA4, real-time reporting provides activity, not only just what's going on in that moment, but what happened within the last 30 minutes on your website. So it really kind of gives you a better idea of what in live interaction your users are having your website. And if I go back to the previous slide, it's right in the center where you see the number 10. That tells you users in last 30 minutes. And if you can look for a little further down, it says you can click on view in real time. So that's one of the great enhancements I thought, because I thought that gave me a better perspective and a better landscape of what people were doing within the last half hour. So yeah, so again, here goes to the GA4 homepage. And again, there is the users in last 30 minutes spot. So here are some other new features on the GA4 dashboard. Mentioned there is the average engagement time. Here on the right side, it shows you new users by user medium. So it goes to organic, none, and referral. What the difference here is now, if you remember before, you could see that social was its own category as far as a referral source in GA3. That is not the case with GA4. A social media referral, such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever the case may be, they are now all grouped under referral. If people are trying to find or get to your website through a search engine, again, like Google or Yahoo, that falls under organic. And none, what that means is essentially there are some privacy settings that people have set up on their computers that don't allow that kind of tracking. I do go over this a little later, as there has been a lot more movement and call for more transparency about what people or what organizations and companies, especially Google, Facebook, and other social media companies do with information that is given to them analytics wise on websites and social media. Like for example, Apple just released a really big significant change in that respect. So I do have that later on in the presentation. And then here go the session by Medium as well, which is just an extension of the new users in the upper right-hand corner. Other new features. This is just scrolling a little further down on the GA4 dashboard homepage. So again, that's session medium. And then over on the upper right-hand corner is a thing called user activity over time. Basically, this is a measurement tool of user retention. So how often are people coming back to your website? And that's another graph here. It's user activity by cohort. So say if you have a user that comes to their website between April 25th and May 1st, how well are you holding them for a 4 or 5 week period on your website? So this is just a good understanding of whether people are coming back to your website after they visited once. This is a section called the pages and screens. This was a similar tool in GA3 that just kind of changed the name and the functionality of it. Here you can see page titles, and you can see way underneath where it says view pages and screens. You just click on that, and then it takes you directly to that page, and it breaks it down for you that way. So this is one of the big new features here. We talked about engagement on a website, and this is the spot, where you can see what kind of events or engagement events are happening on your website. So page view obviously is probably going to be the number one often. Then user engagement, then there's others like session start, first visit, scroll and click, view search results, and you can view those events down at the bottom. And I'm pretty sure I have that, I break that out a little bit later on. Yep, there it is. Okay. So here, understanding the events in GA4. If you don't access it through the home page, like you do here at the bottom, oops, that's right, we gotta go back through all the arrows. It is gonna be right here on the left-hand side under engagement. And then you'll see overview, events, and pages and screens. And pages and screens is the page-by-page breakdown of your website. So this shows the events in a particular time period. So again, page view, user engagement, session start, all sorts. And then you can even see at the bottom, in my case, is file download. I think this was for, the company I work for at MCFI. So file downloads go back to, like if you have a PDF of a class schedule, a newsletter, anything that you have as a file download, like I said, mostly it's a PDF, you can track that here. You couldn't do that before. So now if you were to click, let's say if you went on click, oops, this is how you would this is how it would show a breakdown for you. So in the upper left-hand corner, so it shows you the event count, which means how many times did that particular action, which in this case is click, took place. It happened 210 times out of 166 users. So for an average of 1.3 per user. And as you can see in the center, it shows you the events that happened in the last 30 minutes. And then shows you how they got to that. And of course, there's your event count by country, which looks like I had a couple of visitors from the Philippines. Woohoo! There's your event count by gender. So in this case here, nearly 63% of people that did a click on the website in this particular case was a female. Event count by session. So how many events did somebody take place during a session visit? And then under the right-hand corner, this has a different name. This is just something I called it just to help with my data analysis, but it's here, right here in the right-hand corner. It breaks down exactly what the event count was. So in this case, what was the link? So if there was a, so if you see there's a mcfihomecare.net, that's a referral source. Then there's like Vimeo, which is video links. So this really breaks down what links were used on your particular website and how they got to your website as well. So now what are the new terms that are being referred to in Google Analytics 4? So some of these are new, but are the same, but some are new. So users, again, number of users to visit your website. Sessions is the number of sessions visits to your site. Keep in mind that one user can do multiple sessions. So that's why I think users is the better data point, just because that shows just exactly the amount of people. Sessions helps you how many times a page was seen, but it doesn't tell you how many people. The average engagement time is how long is the typical user on your site engaging with the site. And again, more on this later. Engage sessions per user. How many engagements, events does a user have during a session on your site? I did mention this before. So organic is the search engine referral, and the referral is the links to a website. And then GA3, again, like I mentioned previously, social referral was separate. Now social referrals are incorporated under the referrals section. So one question here, certainly, and it's a lot, is should you have GA3 or GA4? GA3 has not gone away. It is still there. So you can have either or both. So there is really no right or wrong answer here. It depends on what you want to learn about your website. It's suggested now, since it's still relatively new, for the time being, you can have both on your website. It is a little bit more data to process, but you kind of want to have GA3 and GA4 at the same time, especially as we continue to integrate GA4 into the grand scheme of things. So if you were to just start a new website and you're just starting a Google Analytics, it will automatically give you the GA4 layout. Where if you had it previously, so essentially like you're grandfathered in, you can have access both the GA3 or the GA4. If you don't have, like I mentioned before, if you don't have the Google Analytics account, you sign up for it and you automatically get the fourth one. But the problem there is, and I'd say it's a problem, but one thing to keep in mind is that you won't have the historical data of your website from GA3. So if you have the GA3 from before, it's good to have that just from a data referral and historical storage perspective. And be mindful, because there are some website hosts such as Squarespace and others that aren't set up yet for GA4 implementation. I know Squarespace for sure, because that's the website we use for the West Bend Theater Company, and where they ask you on the Squarespace to do, if you want to set up a Google Analytics tag or track in code, you can't do it for GA4 on Squarespace yet. I'm not sure if it applies to some of the other sites, but I would not be surprised if it is. So again, that's something to very much to keep in mind. If you're just starting a website, you just got to make sure that the sites can be GA4 compatible. And as I mentioned, just check with your website host on what you have set up and how to make the needed changes. All right, so here's some more things on what GA4 looks like. And you would access this spot here. This is kind of what's called the acquisition window. And that is on the left-hand side toward the top under life cycle, just under acquisition. So this is what user acquisition would look like. So this is the type of how people, the user themselves, how they got to their site. So in this case, 324 new users came to the MCFI website in this particular time period through an organic search. And then 164 through none, and then 47 through a referral. And then the upper right-hand corner shows just a line chart, and then you have on the upper left the bar chart. So what are these different little sections here? So there's your list of engaged sessions. So that's how many sessions were used off of new users and also total users. There's the engagement rate. So there really hasn't been a barometer set in terms of what's good and what's bad. With GA4, your bounce rate was considered average if it was between 40 and 55%. If it was between 25 and 40, it was considered great. And if it was above 55, it would be worrisome. So this with the engagement rate, this is kind of the similar step, but it's not a direct parallel. So the higher the number it is, the better it is. So you kind of have to best way to kind of understand if your website is doing good engagement wise is just to see how that number trends one way or the other. So if you kind of start GA3, and I'd say give it about 4 to 6 weeks to first get your first idea of this, kind of set your baseline. And then from there, really go back and keep an eye on how that engagement rate fluctuates. And if it starts to, so if you're like here, an average for the site was 69%. After 6 weeks, if it if maybe after 2 months after that 6-week period starts to dip, maybe it's to 64, 63, or 62%, might be time to reevaluate, okay, what are people not doing, or why are they not doing maybe what we want them to do on the website? So that this arrow is the engagement sessions, engaged sessions per user. This is the average engagement time. Oops, back up. Yeah, so there's the average engagement time. So it gives you a total on average for your site, and then it breaks it down based on how the user acquisitions source, which again, organic, none, or referral. All right, so now on the same spot under acquisition along the left-hand side, there is a spot now called traffic acquisition. This was called source and medium in the GA3 style. So there's engaged sessions. So if you see under totals, those are the way that people found the MCFI websites. You see like Google, Direct, Bing, iLife Financial, and there you see it. Number 5 is Facebook.com. You see the M in front of that. If you see that, that means that is the mobile Facebook. Now, if you see Facebook.com by itself, that means they accessed your site through a website click off of the desktop version of Facebook. The other one you'll see is an L.Facebook. That means that somebody clicked on the link within Facebook, such as if you had like a Facebook post and you gave on the Facebook post a website, it's like for more information, visit our website. That would be an L.Facebook referral. Now, if it was the same thing where somebody clicked on a website link from mobile, it would be LM.Facebook. So that's what those are. All right, and then there's the average engagement time per session based on the traffic source, the engaged sessions, and there's the events per session, and then there is engagement rate broken down straight from the source of how people got to your website. And again, that can be found on the left-hand side. So now, what does engagement look like? And that is right there on the left-hand side. So that is now this slide here. So, all right, so under engagement, this is the pages and screens look. So at the top left, you've got the pages and screen bar graph, and then in the upper right is based on users and views of the website pages on your website in a dot chart. And then broken down here on the left on this screen is just what are the different pages on your website, and it can expand to however many pages you have on your website. And a lot of the same information still holds true here, where it shows users, new users, and the average engagement rate. Questions so far? How are we doing?
I'm good.
It's good, Nick. It's a lot of info.
Yeah, sorry, it is a lot of info, and I know I'm kind of speeding through it, but it's very valuable info. So, but again, if you do have other questions that pop up, just let me know. So,
Nick, do you, obviously you sell your services, right?
yeah.
Okay, I'd be interested in talking to you sometime about looking at what you might be able to work with Airshot Live on.
Okay, yeah, we can talk more later. I do provide contact info at the end here as well, and you can also get it from Lisa as well.
Okay, thanks.
All right. All right, so that's going to be it for the GA4 portion here. And some of this next part here may look familiar to some people, but for others who may not have seen it, this is the next, I think, maybe just as crucial part of your Google Analytics understanding. And that is called Google Search Console. Again, it's, and we'll go here to the next slide. Google Search Console is a tool that outlines how users are finding a website based on the search terms or search queries that they're inputting into Google. So here are some statistics about searching on Google, and this really kind of applies just in website searching in general. 60% of searches do not result in a click, and that's even more the case now. With this next bullet point, it says, as of January 2018, there were an estimated 1 billion voice searches per month. With Alexa and Siri and all those, voice searching has certainly become more popular these days as people gear toward those. And voice searches is very difficult because more often than not, when someone does a voice search, they're only getting the very first hit. It's not like you're getting a list. So that's something to keep in mind. So here's a little something from Google's blog: is the perfect search engine should understand exactly what you mean and give you back exactly what you want. So what are search engines? A crawl is something that Google techs do that search web pages and look over the code and content for each URL that is indexed with Google. And indexed is the store and organization of the information it finds from crawling. Indexing we'll go over here in a little bit. And rank provides the pieces of content that best match a person's search query. So this goes back to that search engine results page that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. Based on if you use the correct terms and if you have those terms correctly identified on your website, whether it is on your website or within the coding or description of your site. So this is another example of a search engine results page, and they are tailored to the search query, and it's also of the history of the user. So Google and a lot of search engines and even Facebook and social media kind of store that information, and then they try to tailor your search history based on what you had searched previously. One way to kind of understand it is maybe say, for example, like for me, when we were researching our trip for, I know some of you may have caught this. My family and I just got back from Colorado visiting my sister. So we were doing some web searches on things to do in Colorado, places to stay in Colorado. Well, now search engines store that information and then use that to help put in better information or what they think is more useful information based on your history, thinking this is something that's relevant to you. That way they make that more visible on your page or on your search history than maybe somebody who's looking at that for the first time. That kind of goes back to what I was saying before about how certain or a lot of places and like Google have been under fire for transparency and what people are storing, and also giving more people privacy protection on top of that. So as we all know, ads are everywhere. I think I saw the other day, we see tens of thousands of ads per day, whether we know, either if we know it or not. That can be as simple as seeing a, what am I looking, what's it called? You know, as we all know, on the back of a car, it shows the dealership that you bought the car. That is considered an advertisement. So ads are everywhere, and therefore it's hard to rank #1 in Google. And the way that Google kind of outlines its search results is where it says here at the top, Google, if you were just type Google, and then if you look in this top left, we're under the gray text where it says about 16,000, I think it's, yeah, just over 16 billion things. That's considered the 0 position. That's top position. In most cases, the best way and the only way to get there is by placing an ad through Google. If you're placing an ad through Google, your result will pop up before the organic searches, which means no advertising dollars behind it. So sometimes you'll see the search result, and it has a little icon next to it that says ad, that tells you that somebody paid for that position. All right. So setting up Google. Oh, there's my firstborn. Say hi, Alex. Oh no, this is Logan. I get my own.
Hi, Logan.
I get my own kids confused sometimes. Okay, give me a hug, kids. All right, all right, behave. Yeah, they're heading off to the babysitter. Yeah, you get my own kids confused sometimes. All right, so next spot here is this is what Google Search Console looks like. And you just type in Google Search Console in Google, and it will help you get this set up. So this is the overview, and this is going to be looking at information from the West Bend Theater Company. There's a lot here to dissect, so we'll try and do the best I can. The number one thing you want to look at to understand what your website and how people are finding it is on performance, and that's at the arrow to the left-hand side. So what is the performance? When you click on performance, this is what you get. It shows you the total clicks based to your website, and this is to your homepage. And at the top where it says inspect any URL, you just put in the entire URL for your site. So it's just best to copy the address from your web browser window and then just paste it into this that gray spot. It will look for, or it will help you understand each and every page. So as you see, this shows you that the total clicks was 294, total impressions was 8,390 plus. The average click rate was 3.5%. So that means how many times did somebody see the website in the search engine? How many times, what was the percentage of somebody actually clicking on it? And then average position here. This is a tough one to look at just from the general homepage analysis, because there are some things that really drive down average position. The best way to look at this is to look at the specific search term. And I can do that here, right here on this slide. And this, what shows you is called queries. And you can see that right on the left-hand side, shows you pages, countries, devices, search appearances, and so forth. But queries, I think, is the one, and it's the most important, because this is exactly what people are typing on the Google and search results. And this is showing you the clicks and impressions. And if you were to click on the specific link, say if we clicked on West Bend Theater Company, it will then break down the click-through rate. So that's what we'll do right here. So if you clicked on the West Bend Theater Company, in this case, it showed in that 3-month period that there were 87 total clicks out of 138 total impressions, leading to a click rate of 63%, which is awesome. And it shows the average position of 1. So which in this case, and how Google, again, structures its search results page, this is the second spot underneath. So there's something that would have been above it. Sometimes it might have been an ad or something else. So the best analysis for you is, do you want to be the 0 or 1? And it's very hard to be the 0 position without being without putting some advertising dollars behind it, which can be a little expensive with Google. But if you can get that 1 or 2 on the average position, that still means you're in the top third of the page, and that's really where you want people to be, whether it's on a desktop or mobile, because that 0, 1, and 2, especially if you're kind of thinking mobile, those are the ones people are going to see before they have to start scrolling. There's another tool called Google Data Studio. Really what this one does is helps you organize and keep a historical database of your search history results. So if you can set up a tool within Google Search Console, you can set it up for any kind of time period. You can put the charts together looking at different time periods. So then, so in this case, it was August 1st through August 5th, and you can create that through the blank report here under Start with a Template, and it will give you all sorts of different things that you can do to get this particular thing set up. And it'll give you all the different options and what you want to track. So these are all search queries that were made to find the Milwaukee Center for Independence website. And this is getting specifically its homepage. So it shows impressions, clicks, average position, and the site CTR, the click-through rate. And this is how you get it set up through a blank report. So if you were to do a new blank report, you'll get that just a blank screen, and then use the tools on the right-hand side to set up the chart exactly the way you want it to track the data exactly what you want to track. And then you can kind of store it and leave it as a comparison for certain time periods. So I mentioned before, so what is a sitemap? And a sitemap is a file of code that lives on your web server and lists all of the relevant URLs on your website and what it is carrying. This is very important because this is how Google and all search engines find your website based on text on your website and text that is put into a sitemap. And I said Google uses this to help users find your website. Anytime you go through a massive change to your website, such as a layout structure or just an overall redesign of your website, you need to resubmit your site to map to Google. This is free, so this is not something that you have to pay for. And you do this via Google Search Console. One way to help with indexing on a site is making sure your site has an updated what's called meta description, and it is a description of your web page. And as you see in the highlighted text, this is something you can see in coding, and it often is put together based on usually the web host will do that. So say like Squarespace, for example, or other like GoDaddy, I think, is another one that lets you do these kinds of things, to where they set up the template to where you can input the information exactly the way you want it. So in this case here for the MCFI website, the description was, at MCFI, our mission is to give people the tools and resources they need to achieve greater independence. So these were what we would consider at the company to be the key search terms that we want people to type in to find the website, to find the MCFI website. So the meta description is really important to making sure it has those key search words on your site. So if somebody inputs like independence resources, Google will scan and then they'll use, here's resources in independence. That's how MCFI gets on the search engine results, and it gets high placement because of the search query keywords that were used. So going into what is the importance of the meta description. Again, Google uses this to help users find what they're looking for online. Making sure it's updated increases its click-through rates and visits from organic search, regardless of what search engine that people are using. And really the most important thing, it gives the right people the right information when they want it, because that's what people are doing when they're search engine, is they want the result that they want right now. What else should you know about website functionality? 40% of people will leave your page if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load it. 85% of people who won't browse a site if it's not secure. And the way to know if your website is secure or not is looking at the base of your URL. So if it has HTTPS colon at the start of your URL, that means you have a secure website. If it does not have that S, that means it is a non-secure website. A non-secure website could mean it's more susceptible to outside tracking that Google cannot control, and maybe more susceptible to potential hacking opportunities. So it's very important to have a secure website where people feel they have that security, because it makes it much more difficult for hackers to attempt to hack into that information that's being stored by Google. And 50% of global internet activity is done via mobile. So what can you do to improve your search results? So use keywords in your URL. So example, if you're selling a lawnmower, work lawnmowers into your website, title and your URL. With images on your site, use understandable names such as Briggs & Stratton Lawnmower 01 JPEG. No spaces in file or folder names. We mentioned this before, website speed. So using too high resolution photos slow your website, whether that's desktop or mobile. And there are options, I think it's in Photoshop, where it actually allows you to save for the web, which automatically, if you do that, it compresses the file to make it more web friendly, and therefore does not take as long to load on a site if people are looking at it, if you used a web version, save of a photo for your website. And make sure you're just in general, make sure your site is littered with keywords and phrases people might use to search and find your website. And again, it's about all the user experience. You want to create the most positive user experience you can for people. Therefore, they can come back to you. Because remember what I mentioned before, if it is a negative or disappointing user experience, very high majority of those people will not come back to your site. So why is search engine optimization or SEO important? Google processes about 70,000 search queries every second. 53% of website traffic comes from organic search. So there's still a lot of websites out there that are just trying to fit in without paid advertising. That is a lot of competition that you're trying to stand out from. Almost a third of consumers search for local businesses daily. And then more than 99% of all searchers click on one of the links in the first search engine results page. So essentially, if you that's where we kind of mentioned about wanting to be in that first two positions, is more often than not, if they are going to click, that is where they're going to click from. Organic search drives more than 10 times more website traffic than just organic social media. Just more clouded. And especially in the last several years, even more recently with the social media kind of getting flack for transparency and storing information. Facebook is right at the front in terms of getting the criticism. There's still a high value in making sure you have a high functioning website that gives the people the information that they want. And the first result on the search page, on the search engine results page in Google, has a 28.5% click-through rate on average. And by the time you get to the 10th result, which is essentially all the way down at the bottom, your click-through rate is 2.5% or less. Provide the right content your users want. That is the number one goal with any type of search, and making sure your website is set up correctly. Is you want, when people find your website, they are getting the content that they want, and it helps them answer the question of search intent. So you got to understand why would people come to your website? You got to give them that information to do that. And keep in mind, and this is things we've mentioned before, there has been enormous demands for more transparency from websites, and especially third-party tracking programs such as Google Analytics. I think in the last month or two, Google or Apple had a system update that gives users the authority to accept or decline tracking programs to be utilized on apps that they download. This is it's kind of a back and forth about this within the industry. Obviously, this is all geared toward user privacy and protection. Those who disagree with this say this does not provide adequate opportunities for companies or employers to reach the correct people. So you might be flooding users with content that they don't want to see. So that's kind of the back and forth with this. But the change is geared again towards giving the users more authority, control of what of their data is being tracked, if they want to be tracked at all. And this will make ad targeting more difficult as more and more people start to do it. It's predicted that within the next 2 to 3 years, third-party cookie tracking will be gone. And cookie tracking is essentially Google Analytics. So that's going to be something that kind of continues to evolve, and see how what kind of settings people make in terms of how sites and social media store that information. That's going to greatly change how digital and social media marketing does going forward. And again, that's the reason for these changes, is to focus on the user information privacy. And as you see, that's kind of what the reason for that. So in closing, just running a few minutes over time. So make sure you just have identified what are the keywords that help identify what it is that you do, and make sure that you're there on your website, or what your company does. Understanding Google Analytics gives you data that provides insight about your website. So again, this goes back to data-driven marketing decisions. Understanding Google Search Console and Data Studio gives you data that provides insights about how users find your website, and if they click on it. You create a welcoming and informative Informative. There we go. I'll speak correctly. Me speak well. This is what happens when your train gets in 3 hours late. You want to create a positive customer journey on your website. If they don't enjoy it or don't find what they're looking for, they're likely not going to come back, and you can obviously understand who your customers are or website visitors are. All right, so how to get a hold of me? Always feel free to contact me if you have questions about Google Analytics or even social media. That is my contact information there. I do have social media, obviously. I also do podcasts every once in a while. It's actually been a little bit since I've done one. I'm going to record a new one here shortly. And then I also have a blog. What the blog has is just kind of updated information, maybe some news stories about different trends and analysis tips, and just in general tips on how to socially market your company via social media and through websites. Any questions? And that wraps it up.
I do have just a couple really just kind of summary questions, Nick. If that's all right. So
Okay, is it
basically,
Lisa? No,
yeah.
Is it Lisa? Okay.
Yes, it's Lisa. So basically, anybody can use Google Analytics as long as they use Google
Yes.
or have a Gmail. So even though the chamber has a website, it's called Chamber Master, we're able to access Google Analytics.
So was it set up? How was your website set up? Was it through a website host?
I have no idea.
You'd want to find out from the website host. For one, if Google Analytics, if there's a Google Analytics tracking code installed on the website. If not, if you had a company that did it, ask them to implement it. Or at least give you access to where you can implement it. Maybe ask them first if they can implement that. Say, hey, we would like to install. We would like to track our website traffic through using Google Analytics. Do you have the tracking code installed on the website? If not, can you get it there?
Got it. Thank you so much. That I did not know. So once it's there, then to access Google Analytics is how you go where?
You would have to communicate with them on how to get that set up. And typically, if they would create some kind of web address, mostly a Gmail or Google business account where they could, you can access that. They should be able to help you do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just have them set it up, and then they should be able to tell you, it's like, okay, here's how you analyze it. And hopefully what they won't tell you to do is say, hey, you have to pay us in order for you to analyze it. Hopefully they don't have to do that.
And then the other thing
I can tell you if you have it on your website, because there's a way I can.
Okay. Well, then the other thing is, how do we, if you're not a secure website, how do you become a secure website?
It has to do with how your website was built. And again, that would go back to the website host on that.
Okay. Perfect. Those were my question.
Okay, yeah, because website hosts have all sorts of different procedures and stuff like that. Mostly if you have a website host, more often than not, it's going to be a secure site to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I think in most cases, if it's a non-secure one, I think what happens is if that person tried to write the code themselves.
Okay. Perfect.
As I actually got the chamber website up right now. You are a secured site if you did not know that. So you're good there. Just let me do one quick thing here. It's supposed to be. There it is. Okay, there's a button here. Give me a moment. I can tell you right now if you have it on your site.
Looks like we're having some lag with the internet.
Yeah, so Lisa, there is a Google Analytics tag on your website.
Oh, great. So then I can just select it.
Yeah, so what you need to do is talk to the website host, say, hey, I believe, just to verify that there is a Google Analytics tag on your website and you would like to start tracking user activity on your website using Google Analytics, and they should be able to help you through that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Nick, I've got a question for you.
Sure. Fire away.
G4 and G3, what are the benefits of going with G4 as opposed to G3? If a lot of the search engines aren't necessarily certified on G4 yet.
Well, the thing is, if you didn't have GA3 before the unveiling of GA4, you're not going to be able to get the GA3 data. Because when you start a Google or Google Analytics account now, it's going to automatically set up to be a Google Analytics 4 account. That's why it's you kind of have to do a little research in terms to find if a website host that you're going through allows GA4 code implementation. I would suspect that places like Squarespace will do so eventually. They just haven't gotten around to it, or they're still in the process of doing so. So that's why if you're researching for a specific website host, whether it's GoDaddy, Squarespace, I can't remember some of the others out there, you got to make sure that they can allow for GA4 code implementation, because otherwise, if it doesn't, then it's not going to work, especially if you're just starting a Google Analytics account.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating for somebody for those, but unfortunately, just because Google just continues to unveil this in slow moderation, it's pretty close to being a full unveil at this point, but that means other places just haven't quite caught up yet. But I know in Squarespace and pretty sure GoDaddy, they have their own analytics tools as well. Other questions? All right.
Lots of information, Nick. Thank you so much for sharing today.
No problem. It was my pleasure. And, yeah, hopefully it makes sense. Like I said, it's a lot to process, but hopefully I can at least simplify it a little bit. And like I said, if you have questions, by all means, feel free to reach out to me. And I'll send out the recording of this later. And then I'll include the PDF as well, so you have some of those clickable links that you can refer to, like the YouTube video I showed. So, all right. Any other questions before there we go.
Thank you so much, Nick. Appreciate it. Always great information.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Glad to share that information. There's just the value that you get from that. From